Hey, this is Brian, and welcome to Podcast on Wheels, powered by Power Loops. Today, we've got one of my best friends in town. We work out together, we hang out together, we share ideas. This guy's taught me more than I knew, and he's probably forgot more than I know. He is former military, played college basketball. Now he's business coach, helping a lot of people in North Alabama and all around the world. B-Rob, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Awesome. So, Brian Robinson, sorry, I said B-Rob, but that's how we roll here. B-Rob, tell us, your story. Take us back to Virginia and kind of bring us how you became who you are.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Lynchburg, Virginia, and grew up there. Dad wasn't really around. So him and my mom separated or divorced and everything when I was around 4 years old. Spent some time living with my grandmother. She lived in Appomattox, Virginia, which is where the Civil War ended. Mm-hmm. So great place, a lot of history. So I was very fortunate to be able to live with her from the 3rd grade to 7th grade. My dad passed away when I was in the 7th grade. So around 8th grade on, I went back to live with my mom to reconnect with her. And through that, friends I had at the time there, which we're still friends to this day too. But we did some, we got into some trouble. And in order to find a way out of that, I started volunteering for things in high school. When I started doing that, one of the friends that I made in volunteering for extra clubs and things in high school, one of those being the Future Business Leaders of America, I started making friends with people who had connections. Like one of the people that I became friends with was the daughter of our guidance counselor. So that gave me extra time with the guidance counselor to help me mold my future. So I got this time that my friends didn't get to have with the guidance counselor, which had me looking at ways to envision my future. Long story, just a little bit longer. I ended up going to college on a leadership scholarship. Also gave me a little money for basketball. My confidence was really low at the time, so I got looked at, a little bit recruited by D1 schools, just didn't think I could play at that level. So ended up going to a D3 school and once I got in there, I realized, we have a shot clock. So I realized that I actually could play at a higher level. Had a lot of, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I didn't really realize that until I left home and student loans started piling up. Realized that look towards the future, like what I wanted out of the future, and realized that I couldn't get there with all these student loans. At the same time, Army recruiters were coming around, and I wasn't really trying to go to the Army, but they were saying, at least eat our food. We'll take you out to dinner. So brought a friend with me. We went out to dinner, had steak at night with the Army recruiter, and he's talking about all the things that he's talking about, and he said something about paying off your student loans. So that caught my attention. So I started thinking about that as an option, but still wasn't sold on going to the Army. So I went and talked to the Air Force, wanted to be an aircraft mechanic, and the recruiter was like, yes, let's do it. We could do that for you. But what he did not tell me is that they would not pay for my student loans that I've already acquired. The Army would, Air Force wouldn't. So I joined the Air Force, got gung-ho. So I felt like a quitter because at this point I quit college. I quit my first girlfriend. I quit college. I quit basketball around my junior year. Joined the Air Force, felt like a quitter. These guys came around to recruit for Air Force Special Operations. And I didn't know that they were coming. I don't know how I missed the memo, but they came around. A couple of my friends that I made in basic training, they went out, tried out. They came back. I'm like, what did you just do? They were like, we just tried out for this. It's pararescue, CCT. So I was like, are there more? Because I want to do this. They were like, yeah, one more is coming around called TACP, Tactical Air Control Party. So when they came around, I volunteered, went out, felt like a quitter. So I'm like, I'm not going to quit this. Went out, finished, smoked everybody on the test that they give you, the physical test. And I was selected. So I went on and became a Tactical Air Control Party, which is elite force in the Air Force. and left basic, went through my training at Special Operations Base, Harborville, Florida. Went through all the pipeline schools, including survival school, a bunch of different schools. Got stationed at Fort Campbell. And Fort Campbell, Kentucky is where I was on the same team as David Goggins.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that name.
Yeah. Maybe a few times, right? So on the team with him, if you know his story, of course, he weighed a little bit more than he did now. But one of the things, he was still very capable, still had probably the same mentality he has now, maybe a little bit more. I know he's younger, right? So we were on the same team, had the same team lead, everything. Got a chance to work out with him for a spell while we were there, which we did that before our PT. So our PT was early morning. So we would go to the gym, work out, go to PT. So that helped me and I'm still feeling like a quitter at this point, right?
Yeah.
So they just helped me elevate a little bit more as far as my confidence and things like that. And so I think where that plays into what I do now, as I mentioned, born in Lynchburg, Virginia, my dad wasn't around really a lot. And a lot of what I do, sometimes as I'm sitting with men coaching, sometimes it dawns on me that I'm sitting here coaching and I never had a father figure, really, So, and of course, I attribute that to my faith, to God, God's calling for me. But I will say that, I'm like, really? I didn't have a father around, but here I am coaching other men, right? So I just thought that was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great story. And it's awesome that at an early age, you felt like a quitter, but we all got to go through something to come out on the other side.
Absolutely.
And you made that decision. How old were you when you joined the military?
I was 21.
21.
Yeah.
And so by 22, 23, you weren't a quitter anymore.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, we can go into many different avenues here, but, the man that you are and your faith in God, and has that always been there? Is that something that from a young age, or is that?
So my grandmother had me in church. Okay. My great grandmother, I used to go to church with her. I spent a lot of time with my grandmothers, right? My great grandmother and my grandmother. These are my moms, and they're both deceased now. But I spent a lot of time with them, and they had me at church, and I knew who Jesus was. Mm-hmm. What I didn't know is what relationship was. I knew what religion was, but I know what relationship was. And honestly, I didn't really know what relationship was until probably about 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I always respected God. I always knew Jesus died for our sins and rose again. I knew that. I just didn't know how to live it out. And I didn't know how to implement that in other areas of my life, with my thought processes and conflict resolution, things like that.
Right. My
service to others. Yeah.
And there's been many shows that we've done, and we get into that in there. Well, and my story, yes, I was in church and I walked up and said, I'm a Christian. And then, but was I living it? Did I have that relationship? And that's the thing that I know you're big on, especially now with your family. And I've seen you interact with your family, and and you're the guy that, everybody knows who you are when you go places. Mm-hmm. And what is that about you? Is that energy? Is that what? I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about you, sir. Okay. Wow. I mean, it's big, and normally somebody somewhere, is saying something, but every day, I see you at the gym, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. How do you bring that every day? Mm-hmm. What do you do to bring that?
Yeah. So I know I told a little bit of my story. There's a lot in there. I told a little bit about my father's death. When he passed away, I was actually upset with him because we had just rekindled our relationship, and he was supposed to come visit me for my birthday. That didn't happen. And so I was mad with him. I got a call. I was living with my grandmother at the time, 7th grade. I got a call, and he was in the hospital, and he wanted to see me. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to go see you. And I'm 13 at the time.
Yeah.
So I didn't go see him, and he passed away. So that mixed with, there was a lot of death that I was around where I grew up. A lot of friends got killed. I had some friends that just died in some awful ways. Of course, being in the military, saw a lot there too. And I think those type of experiences, I'm not going to say that it's this or that. There's probably some in between too. But a lot of times it's either those type of experiences will make you harder, or you could actually go the other way and understand, have a respect for life, right? So as I look at that and realize how precious life is, and then I look at how I want to be, what my vision is, and how I want to show up, I have to remind myself of that all the time. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds, and 310 pounds. 20 on camera, right? 320 on camera, 10, gives you 10 pounds. But anyways, something that I realized is I was getting a certain reaction from people, right? And I don't know why I had this cueing, but I would see that, I would come around and, like people would just like, just kind of like cower a little bit and things like that. And I don't know how I got there, but basically I realized that if I would smile, then people wouldn't do that, right? Or if I would, show up a certain way, then I would get a different reaction, right? So when that started happening, I started just taking in these cues and realized, okay, and it wasn't manipulation. I don't want it to come across, I'm not trying to manipulate anyone. What it is though, it's like, all right, here's my vision for the future. Here's how now I understand what a relationship with Christ is like, and I understand what therefore I understand what relationship with other people should be like, right? I understand what conflict resolution can look like. I know what death looks like. What does life look like? What do I want life to look like? So what I do is remember how I want to show up. And it involves a lot of extra things in the background you have to do. I was telling a client yesterday who's making great progress. He went from everybody around him thinking that he was addicted to something, and he had all these things. I mean, everyone was like, what the heck is going on with him? And he started coaching with me, and I'm not the hero. He's the hero. What I was able to do was get to know him, and we brought out him, the true him, like his uniqueness, and we celebrated that. And he started finding the inspiration to actually go and make the positive steps that he needed to make with how he wanted to show up, right? So I do that, and there's a lot of ways, and I was telling him yesterday that there's a lot of things that I have to do. Like, for instance, if you watch me a whole week in the gym, you'll realize every Monday I wear the same thing. Every Tuesday I wear the same thing every Tuesday. I wear the same thing every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? I do the same split. And I pick that out the night before. I already know what I'm going to wear. I pick it out the night before. And so I don't have to think about any of that. It's already laid out. I wake up at 5 o'clock. I got my pre-workout already made. My post-workout's already made. All that stuff's done. I don't have to think about it. So now those are things that need to be in place so I can show up, right? So the other things that you can't control, those things may happen. I may wake up with a headache. I may wake up with cramp. I don't know what it is, right? So that gives me room to work those things out so I can still show up the way I need to show up.
Here at Smith Financial Services, we take care of small business owners, 1099 contract workers, and their families. We know insurance can be rough if you're a small business owner, so we are here to make things easy. Visit our website, smithfinancial.services, to learn more.
So in controlling what you can control, that's something that I work on every day because there's things happen, things come up.
Absolutely.
And when you're coaching those guys, but you inevitably have coached me. Okay. And I'm very thankful for that because there's not many people that I can go to and feel comfortable enough to open up and share some things that we've talked about, or we start talking about, what's, the first time I said RAS and reticular activating, and you're like, oh yeah, I got you. Yeah. And the next 30 minutes there at the gym, I got a better understanding of that. And like you did for the guy yesterday, you're showing the man who he is inside, right? And you're bringing that out. So what's some steps, or how do you, reveal that? How do you get to know somebody like that? How do you know, in your approach, what do you do?
Yeah. So it's something I have to always remind myself is be interested, not interesting. Right. And what I've done is really worked on when I'm in front of you is really making sure that I can be interested in everything you're saying. And really just like, and as you're talking to me, I'll form a picture in my head, and then next time I'll play that picture back, and I might ask you about something that I played back, right? So my clients are amazed because they're like, "Oh, you remember that from?" And the trick is I formed a picture. It's like a movie. I just replay it, right? But I really had to really work on making sure that I will suppress anything I might want to say. Like I don't want to steal the mic from you. Let you have the mic. And then just listen to what you're saying and be really interested in it. And also ask you questions about it to show you that I'm interested in it, and maybe even repeat what you say, right? To show you. And as I kept working on that, it just became this thing where I really don't want to tell you a lot about me. Not that I'm trying to hide anything. I just want to know a lot more about you. And so when I do that in coaching, I get to just be excited about the person. I love watching documentaries. You know, when I have my downtime on the weekend, I will watch documentaries. I love stories about people. I always have. So I just get to do that in real life. So you're like a documentary to me. I get to learn about. I get to ask questions. If you really pay attention to your interactions throughout the day, watch how many people really care about what's going on in your life. Unless it's some sort of drama, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to know the drama. They want to know that stuff, right? But people who really want to know, that's because they're thinking about what's going on in their life. So I get to serve people, and I'm so blessed I get to do it as a profession, right? Yeah. As a business where I can show up and just really be interested in you and then walk with you wherever you want to go, which is, you know, and I tell people all the time, I really want to be clear. Coaching is not counseling. I'm so glad it's not, because although I don't mind working with my close friends, family, whoever who's going through some things and maybe even just trying to be part of their healing process, with my clients, you know, there's counselors to go unpack the laundry, the dirty laundry, the baggage, all that stuff, right? They go and unpack that. But what we do is we get to figure out, what are you excited about? What do you want to go get? You know, what's the next level like for you? And that gets to be all yours, whatever you say it is. And I'm getting excited with you. That's so interesting to me. And now I get to walk with you to that. We build a plan and everything. And it's the best job ever.
I heard that. And, you know, we were at an event, I think it was a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, and they made an announcement of, you know, an accomplishment you've had, and you've had your YouTube channel, I think 7 years or 8 years maybe, and getting over 2 million views on YouTube, you know. And I love it because when you go on there, you've got the hat, you've got the jacket, is, you know who's talking, but the information that you give out, man, how do you come up with all of that content? Because a lot of people who maybe they want to build a business, or they want to create content, or they want to say something, you know, how do you come up with so much? Because I'm looking at it going, well, I don't want to exactly quote what he said, but I want to take this and reshare it somehow. But how do you do that?
Yeah, it goes back to being interested in people, right? So with my clients, with just people I come in contact with, just really listening to what their problems are, what their struggles are, or just tapping into human behavior, right? And again, not getting into counseling or anything, but understanding that, you know what, someone who hasn't, you know, one of the things that I hear, I do this too, so I'm not perfect. I want to make sure. One of the things that I hear a lot is, oh, I have to do this. I have to do, you know, I don't have a choice. You do have a choice. Most of the time you do have a choice. You just don't want to take that other option, right? So you do have a choice. You just don't want to do it for whatever reason. I do tell myself that I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go do this. And I'm not looking at any other options. So I have to go do this, right? But I do have other options I can go do. They just may hurt, or they may require me to have to show courage because I'm afraid, right? So, just taking that in and realizing that, and it's like, oh, I've talked to 10 people this week, and 8 of them are afraid, they're not seeing another option. I'm gonna go create some content on that. Or I'm seeing this trend, I'm gonna create some content. And here's the other part of it too is, not to put you on the spot, how many times have you read the Bible?
Many times I have read the Bible. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And John 3:16, you've probably, that's the one, I'm just saying that because that's the one most people know, right? Sure. You've seen it over and over and over and over and over, and we have to be reminded of it. Right? It's just us as people. We have to be reminded. So you may see, I might do a video on fear, courage, right? And then I can do that. I can do another video on it a few months later, 2 or 3 months later, next quarter.
Right.
Because that person still, there's going to be something else that they're going to need to find some courage, need to find some confidence. There's going to always be something because we're so dynamic. So a lot of, if you look at it, it's really, I have a bucket, right, of topics.
Right.
And it's just really talking about those topics in different ways.
And there's something that I just grabbed out of what you said. And you said that you get afraid?
Oh, yeah.
You get scared?
Absolutely.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
How big of a man? And let's, real talk right here. Like that's what's hard for me. And I'm good with it now. Okay. Thanks to people like you saying it's okay. But there's been times in my life that I wanted to say, help. But no, I'm a man. I don't, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, you're special ops and you've done this and you've seen that and you're able to talk about, you're saying you are. So that's who you are.
Right.
You're genuine. But how does that transcend for you? How could you, when you're coaching these clients, I know a lot of times it may take a little while to get to know them
right.
But how do you try to do that? But, and how do you do it?
Yeah. So would you say you're brave?
Yeah.
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 But how can you be brave if you've never exercised courage? And you can't exercise courage unless you've been afraid.
Wow.
Right? So we love saying that we're brave, but we don't want to say that we've been afraid. Right? So how can you be brave when you haven't been afraid? Right?
Right.
So that's the part when you want to, go back. And I have to remind myself that too, of what's really going on here. And we can dress fear up in so many different ways. It's really the baseline for a lot. Right. You probably have plenty of guests that's going to talk about that.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Well, no, they don't really get that deep into it because, but you unpack things because you work with so many people. And that's why you're special. I'm just man to man, I love you. And it's like, that's why you're special because you're able to say, okay, well, if you had this, then you had to have this. And it just, it works. So I've got a question and you've told me a story, sometimes you get these guys to this certain point, and I think it was somebody who was looking at a venue and some opportunities to open maybe a wedding venue or something like that. And you get them right there to it. And, was he ever able to take that leap? Was he ever able to take that jump and go into that business? And how do you convince those guys, hey, you got to go for it, because you can't sit here. I'm not afraid. Don't tell anybody I'm afraid. But how do you get them to that, because a lot of people get to that valley of despair.
Right.
They have the idea. They got to go. And then all of a sudden, I got hit in the mouth.
Absolutely.
So how do you take them to that level?
That's a very good question. So it's a really fine line, right? Because I don't ever want to push my opinions, for a long time, how I got into coaching is because I could always see potential in people. And the way I used to do it back in the day, and again, I attribute God gifted me with this. I could see potential. So I would see like Podcast on Wheels 1 million. So I would look at you and say, Courtney, and say, and Stu, 1 million. I would look at you. But then when you're doing things that don't attribute to that, then I would judge you. Right. That's how I used to be. But then I think what God has revealed to me is that why don't you help? Help. But with that comes, I really have to make sure that I deal with facts when it comes to a decision that you have to make. I can't let it be my decision for you, right? So one of the things to go back and answer your question is, coaching, I build my picture. I remember the attributes that you have, I remember these facts over here, these things that you've accomplished since we've been working together and even before. And I just lay it all out on the table. And I'll say, Brian, you've done the research. There's this. You've already built the podcast on wheels. You've done this. You hired this. You did this. Do you still want to not take this extra step?
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately, I can't tell, make it. And I don't want to push you. I just want to lay it all on the table, whether it's true, whether it's favorable or not. I want to also tell you, hey, there's also this, right? Mm-hmm. We know that this is, from the research, that here, this is trends too. There's trends over here. So it's really just laying on the table, and the decision has to be yours. And there's been plenty of clients I've worked with that made a decision that personally I wouldn't have made, but it's their life. I'm there to help guide them where they want to go, not where I want them to go. So in that case, that client was real. I was so blessed to work with him, and I had never had the opportunity to take someone, to work with someone, to guide someone who was where he was. We went through the process, and I don't know how many months, maybe 6 months. Oh, it was less than 6 months, actually, to sit in front of a bank with the paperwork, and the bank, like, yeah, we'll give you $1 million. It was a little less than $1 million for this, but we do need this, right? So they did have a comeback saying it's like a soft yes.
Sure.
But his mind was blown. I was like, this is great, because you think it's gonna go until it does or doesn't, right? Right. That's the, and it worked, man. And but there were some other things that came out of it, and when those things came out, he decided to go with that, and I've checked in with him a few times, and he does say he wish he had done that,
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's that brings me to this other thing I was thinking about. I've been exercising this a lot lately. You mentioned, I think we were live when you mentioned Lynchburg.
Yes.
You have an ex-wife, right?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah.
Right. So you're remarried, happily married. Me, same here. Remarried, happily married. I bring that up because a lot that I remind myself and my clients and my friends, associates, everybody is if you made a mistake or something didn't go well, you still have right now. What can you do now? Yeah. Right? So you didn't say the right thing to a person, or you got into a conflict with someone. Visualize, where do you want things to be? And you might decide that, I don't want that person in my life. And that's your choice, and that might be fine. Me, I love having harmony. I want to have harmonious relationships, right? Unless it's someone that's truly, truly toxic, right? And then they're harmful to my family and everyone else. Then those people I have to not interact with. But I have to make sure that I'm not harboring hate, because that puts me in a prison, right? That's something that I keep thinking about, which if I'm thinking about that, then I'm not thinking about the great things for the future, for the present and the future, because I'm thinking about that. So I have to clear that cache, right? Yeah. I have to clear that out. Yeah. And I have to figure out, what does that look like? So there's been plenty of times I've reached out to people, and I've just did this a few weeks ago, that I've had, because I was thinking, I'm like, man, this person keeps coming up, and we just didn't end well. So I reached out, we had a conversation. It was great. So boom, peace. I can't think of anyone else I have problems with. It's not on my, if they have problems with me, that's on them.
That is, No, I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
I had a conversation with a guy that I'm helping right now. And, the other day he said, oh man, this happened and this happened. And I said, okay, well, if that happened at 1:00, your day got derailed.
Right.
What did you do at 1:15?
Absolutely.
Or did you carry that?
Right.
And I've, over the last few months, by starting this show and getting to talk to more people, I've made some of those phone calls that I didn't want to make, but I let go of it. And one of them, they cussed me a little bit, and I rightfully deserved it, but 10 minutes later, I actually got a call back, and they said, thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, well, I think I was the one that should be saying thank you. But, you know, you go through those experiences, and the more you help people, you can help more people. But, you know, you mentioned your wife and being happily married. And so you've got your faith in God, you know, and your family, your fitness is good. But tell us about that relationship there at home. Some of the things that you've taught me, you know, on how to respect and how that goes in your house. So,
yeah. So I had this vision. I didn't realize it was a vision like I know vision now as a coach, right? But when I first met my wife, I had this vision of what my life and marriage should be like.
Right.
And as our first date wasn't supposed to be a date, but it turned into a date. We went out riding four-wheelers. And at that time, I was divorced, dating, had a bad taste in the dating pool. They say dating pool has pee in it. Somebody's peed in the dating pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it's probably me too. But anyways, didn't have a good experience there. So when I met my wife, which I had already known her, but really decided that, hey, let's go do this. I just want to talk to a female. I promise it won't be any. We set boundaries. And I think that's the best way. From the very beginning, we set boundaries. And because we had those boundaries, we ended up, that it actually freed us. And it freed us to have discussions we probably wouldn't have had if we had the stress of, oh, this is somebody that I'm dating and I'm looking to date, or we're on a date. So we didn't have that. Wow. So we were able to just open up, be transparent. And we realized we had a lot in common because we had that initial boundary of, this is not a date. Right. This is not, you know, I thought I was going to move back to Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was like, Alabama's not for me.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm going to interrupt you right there. I'm glad you didn't.
Glad I didn't either. We got married 3 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've been married for 15 years.
Talk about time collapse dating time. But, you know, I've never heard that before. I've never heard, okay, I want to go hang out with the female. Because, you know, there's times in my life I've been single and you go out with somebody and you're like, okay, are they expecting this? Am I expecting this? And then it gets awkward and then you don't know, well, am I supposed to hug you goodnight? Am I supposed to kiss you? Am I not supposed to touch you? Or you come from me holding your hand? Or, you know, but setting those boundaries. So the communication line has always been there with you guys, right? Yeah. And some of the things that I've, you know, and I saw your wife pass at the gym this morning, you know, and she was zoned in, bro. When she goes up there, she's not there to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I'm impressed because she has her group.
Yes.
And they get after it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they get after it. A lot harder than I do. But a lot harder than I do. But, you know, and your kids, like, talk a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So I had a daughter from a previous marriage. And my relationship with my ex-wife is good too. There's no issues there, right? And she had two sons from a previous marriage. So we have a blended family, and now we have a daughter together.
Okay.
Right. So having that blended family, we really, really had to really focus on boundaries. And in order to make sure we had the opportunity to cast a vision, we had boundaries. So that meant that we would do certain things and we wouldn't do other things. You know, like, I've never been to Disney World, right? Because we were like, we have a family of 4. We're trying to do these other things. Is Disney World going to be more important to us? And I'm not saying it's bad for anyone. It's just our choice, right? Sure. We're not going to do that, but we're going to do these things, right? So we'll go to Sevierville and Gatlinburg all day.
Love it.
Or to the beach or something, right? And we like new cars, my wife and I, right? So we're like, you know what? It's our life. Like I was telling you earlier, I've seen a lot of death. And how precious life is. If we want to enjoy that, it's our life, as long as we love God more. So we try to keep those boundaries intact. Not saying we're perfect at it. So I don't ever want to sit here and act like I'm perfect. Right? Wouldn't be here if I was perfect. Right. Would be not here. We do strive for excellence. There's nothing wrong with that. And excellence in what you've been given to steward. Right. So we set a lot of boundaries. Family it's been really good as far as our dynamics of our family. We are both coaches. So parenting looks a little different now as a trained coach. So and it's a fine balance because it's like my clients, their decisions doesn't really affect my life. I mean, it affects my life because I want them to succeed, but ultimately they can make a decision that doesn't have an impact on my life. Now, my kids are different, right?
Yes.
They can. So but we have to kind of step back a little bit, coach them, and help them come to decisions on their own through a series of questions. That's been pretty powerful. And you're a dad.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they don't want to listen to you anyways. So when it's their idea, right? They'll do it.
Right.
So coaching helps bring out their idea.
Yeah.
And then that's been beautiful.
And that being your gift to see the potential in your clients and the people you are fortunate to coach, as you would say, you're blessed, and everybody you get to work with. And then to take those lessons and implement it to your family. I mean, when you said that, we had an instance this morning where, our youngest, he's 6, and he's like, I don't want to go to school today.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I said, okay, bro. I said, you don't want to go to school? Tell me why. Well, I've got a cousin who's having a baby any moment right now. Okay. And he's like, Mom said I'm having a baby cousin and I don't want to go to school. And I said, okay, but what's our rule here? If you don't go to school, then you're not going to soccer practice this afternoon. He got up and got dressed because he enjoys that time at soccer, with his team. So I can definitely relate to that because, years ago, if he would have said, my oldest, I don't want to go to school. Well, I don't really have a standard or the boundaries in place.
Absolutely.
And the communication in there. So, yeah.
And consistency.
Yeah.
Right. So you're showing them because of this, the effect is this. Right. And that's a great life lesson. Like I was talking about how I would show up a certain way and how people were responding to me.
Yes.
And I'm like, why am I getting this response? I want a different response. I had to change me to get a different response, right? Change what I was doing. Still kept it authentic. Now I love the response, right? So showing them a cause and effect because of this and staying consistent. So I think that's one of the biggest things with parenting. Yeah. Is consistency.
And I pray to God I'm doing it right every day, right? I mean, I'm not perfect by any stretch. But
same.
So, with the coaching, with everything, and, when you're coaching a guy, do y'all get into the financial side? Do you get into this side? Kind of what's the parameters, or how do you help somebody?
Yeah, they get to determine that.
Okay.
Yeah, they get to determine where we're going.
Okay.
I remind my clients almost every session, you're the boss. So if we do start going in a direction that we didn't discuss, because part of the initial discovery is I find out where you want to go. And if you don't have a goal, that's okay. If you don't really know what your reality is, that's okay. If you don't know what the opportunities in front of you are, that's okay. But if you don't have the will to take another step, then I don't coach those clients.
Right.
So I'm pretty selective with who I work with.
So it's not a come one, come on. You don't just walk open. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you would look at my website, you either have to apply, which you get a call from me, or you have to know me and talk with me. And that's the only way in. You can't just go in and book and it's all good. Like we do our first session. And that's the first time, It doesn't work that way. It's okay with the coaches that do that. I just want to be more selective. So because I really care about the person.
Yes.
And I really want them to succeed. And I really want this thing to grow because I know that I help people. I know I serve people. I know my heart, right? So when I'm by myself, I know who I am. I'm very happy with that person.
That's so awesome, man. And I did go to your website several times, when I met you and try to see, okay, who's this guy I'm talking to? What's this? And I saw that, and that, as a former baseball coach, you couldn't just show up and be on the team.
Absolutely.
And because I'm going to give you everything I got in that moment that you've got me.
Absolutely.
And it does affect you if they're not doing this or doing that. And you being selective, that just, the respect there increases from me to you. So
thank you for that.
Man, this is so much fun. So if you could suggest, is there books that you suggest to your clients? Are there other things you have? I see you every morning at the gym and you're writing in your journal. Tell us about some of those things that you have.
Yeah, those things are things, me knowing me, those are things that I have decided I need to do so I can keep showing up as me.
Right.
And those are those quirky, unique things about me. Because I've had plenty of people come, hey man, there's an app. Don't you know you can do an app? I don't want to do an app because if I'm doing an app and I see a message from a client, I'm gonna be thinking about that. So for me, that doesn't work well. Or I see, YouTube, you just got 2 million views, right? I'm gonna be thinking about that, right? And not my workout. So and again, that's just me. No judgment on anyone who uses apps. So I use my book. I've been doing it for several years, probably more than 2 decades. I have my old ones, and I just started printing my own about 3 years ago, something like that. And I don't really publicize them a whole lot because I made it for me, but for people who want to use it, I really want people to use it. Right. So people, I do sell them, of course, and people do buy them, but it really pleases me when they pay and use it. Yes. More than when they just pay. Right. Yeah, because I want them to use it.
Absolutely. So, through the coaching, do you have coaches? Do you have people you reach out to? So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm very, at least in my head, I'm very quirky, different, right? Okay. I got these quirky things. So I have several people. I have like a team that I go to for different things. Yeah. Right? Because when you look at what I do, I don't know many people that have a coaching business. I have an Etsy shop. I have building an online community, which I hadn't talked about publicly. And I wanted to, that's why I wanted to wait before I did the interview with you, because I wanted to know for sure that I was going to go that route. Right. So I am. Okay. I'm going that route. Online community. What else do I have? Driven group coaching program. So I have a lot of these things. So then I have, I'm previously married, happily married, blended family. You see how we're going? Yeah. I'm a black male. Yeah. There's so many different things about me that I have to get different people to help me with all of it, right? And my wife's a coach, so I even take in, she coaches me a whole lot. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Which brings me to something. I had this thought earlier when we were talking about boundaries, right? I was talking about reaching out and just getting peace, finding peace in different things. Like you reached out to the person and then they called you back. So good. People who love you, people who are on your team, when you're struggling, suffering, hurting, whatever, they have to hear it. And then they hurt. So now like say you have a problem with that person, right? It's not resolved. You're coming home talking to Courtney. You and Stu are trying to work. He's hearing about it. People are hearing about your and now they're, if they're empathetic, they're feeling it too. And it's taking off and else impeding in their life. So I look at all that and I'm like, how many things have I vented to my wife about that I can actually just go put an end to? Right. And this was one of those. I'm like, I keep talking to her about it. Now I'm putting this weight on her. She's got enough. Yeah. We're all kind of in overwhelm right now. Right. Yeah. So let me go fix it. And then I'll stop all that. Right. So I look at that. And the reason I want to bring that up is because through prayer, I prayed for like 4 weeks before I actually made the first move on that. Yeah. And I really wanted to be sure I wasn't doing it for approval for myself. And I wanted to make sure I was doing it that I was genuine. I was going to be genuine when I showed up and told that person face to face the things I needed to apologize for and where I wanted to go with our time. Right. And I was. And it was very well received. And my wife doesn't hear about it anymore.
Yeah, and she's thankful for that.
I'm sure. Right?
I'm sure.
I just want people to realize that there's secondary and tertiary effects of your struggle for people who care. So if you really want to take care of those people, look at the other side. Is there something, get rid of the pride, go get some peace, and take care of yourself and your people who love you. Yeah. If not, you're heavy for them too.
Yeah. Well, the show we did last week, guy's got a shirt that says "Show Up Different," and he put it on the sleeve, so he can slap you, and just show up different for your wife.
Absolutely.
If you come home complaining, you're right. Yeah, that's what's going to be. So, I love that, man, and I love that your story from going and there's so many people that have been in your situation, possibly with the family and growing up and the parent passing and this and going back and forth, that's what they would use to blame why they're living their life this way, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what's so encouraging about you. You know, we got a little deeper today than I've heard, but it's like, hey, you can do it.
Right.
And if you can do it, then there's no limitations on anybody, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And contrary to what media and society puts out, the propaganda, I'm not trying to get political, right? But people really do care.
Yes.
There are people who still care. Sometimes you have to care first. Probably many times you have to care first.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody's taking in the same stuff. And everybody's thinking nobody else cares. So when you start caring first, they're like, oh, wait, like the guy, right? Be different.
Yeah.
Show up different. Yeah. Care first and watch what happens. Guess what? If somebody misuses that, it would suck. It would hurt, right? But did you show up in the character that you wanted to show up with? Are you in your character? Is your character to care? And if that's in your characters, that's one of the character traits, be proud of that. Even if they misused it, you showed up how you want to show up. There's integrity in your character, how you showed up. Be happy with that. And that's what I go back to.
Step into the future with Power Loops, the king of off-grid power, where our proprietary system is changing the game of energy. This isn't just power, it's freedom. The freedom to live, work, and play anywhere, powered by our innovative technology that taps into the Earth's natural energy. Our system is designed for efficiency, durability, and sustainability, ensuring that you have reliable power 365 days a year without harming the planet. Whether you're traveling in the RV, the remote wilderness, or just opting out of traditional power grids, Power Loops provides the ultimate solution. Join us in leading the charge towards a cleaner, greener, and more empowered world. Power Loops, the king of off-grid energy. Man, not only are you helping people, you're saving lives too, because I had a guy sitting right here a few weeks ago and he talked about that. He said somebody just kind of checked on him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And instead of taking the pills and ending it, he looked for a future.
Yeah.
You know, and that's real talk.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and that's, man, this is so good, B.
So I had that happen, right? And that's a very good point. And paying attention to those moments. I worked at this organization. I walked in. There was a person behind the desk. I walked in. I was just wanted to get to where I needed to get to. Felt like I was a little bit late. And I was like, I felt like I credit the Holy Spirit, but something just said, go speak to her. So I did. I'm like, hey, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
You know, I realized I walked by, didn't even speak to her. How are you? Right. Well, a few months later, she told me, she said that she was actually contemplating killing herself. She said her daughter wasn't speaking to her. She didn't have a community. She felt like nobody recognized her. And when I spoke to her, she realized somebody did, you know, and I took that. I'm like, man, I got to do something with that. I got to like that. I needed that too, I need that realization.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Shout out to my mom right here. I called her on the way home from the gym today. And I said, you know, it's really cool when I go in and I get to, you know, see this person, that person, and there's a hug, there's a love, there's genuine care. And she said, you know, it's good to know you matter.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I'm like, wow. You know, it's like, yes. And that's what we're talking about right here.
Absolutely.
And just, wow. And no wonder that when I first met you and I see you and I'm like, I got to know who this guy is. You know, you intrigued me from the aspect of course, you're 6'5", maybe 280 at the time, 290. You've been up and down, but you're strong as cookies. Everything, right?
The power of cookies.
Yeah, you call them cookies, I call them weight. But no, man, it's like, how is this guy showing up like this every time? You know, in one of our first conversations, and I asked you, I said, oh, well, this is Courtney, my wife, and this, and you're like, well, these are the standards, these are the rules, this is how we do things. I'm looking at this place, I'm looking at this business and this office, and you have gotten that office and you've upgraded that office and you're moving and doing things. So I've loved following and just seeing the progress that you've made because, how do you say, you live what you preach?
Yeah.
You know, like it's real, it's genuine. So,
well, let me just say thank you for that. And you guys are the same, right? So when I see you, you know, watching that video when you guys were building this place out.
Yeah.
right? And the way y'all did that, I was like, man, that is awesome. And then just to see how y'all are staying consistent, like we need to see that too, right? We need to know, and then us to be here. And so that coming from you, knowing what you guys do and how you're doing the same thing, it means a lot more because you understand it.
Yes, sir.
Right. So letting you know, I understand you and I appreciate you. And I get fueled up off of that.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And so, as we kind of conclude the show here, is you've encouraged so many people. You've done so many things. I don't know how we could top some comments and then things the nuggets you've dropped, but is there a quote? Is there a story you'd like to share? This is your camera. So if you just want to share something right now, please.
Yeah.
Please.
So what I want to tell you is everyone has that thing, that next thing, that place that they really want to be. And reach out to me. We can have a conversation. Won't charge you anything for that conversation. If we want to get into an agreement after that we can talk about what that looks like, just reach out and let's have a conversation. If I'm not the right person, I'll point you. If I know the right person for you, I'll point you in their direction. If there's other ways I can help you, I would definitely let you know about that. But my goal is really to help people, help with that transformation. I know you got something else that next thing you really want that's burning in the hole. You try to cover it up with all these other things and it just keeps coming back. I can help you get there.
B-Rob, this is going to be shared to many, many people. And if it helps one dude, absolutely, one female, one kid, it was worth it. Absolutely. It was worth it. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching Podcast on Wheels.